There is one universal God, there is one universal Spirit, one whole and indivisible, there is no other. Due to spiritual ignorance, the people see universal God differently. Because of this, they call him by different names. In truth, universal God is universal Spirit, which is both manifest and unmanifest, both personal and impersonal, both immanent and transcendent, yet neither. Universal God is the one greatest mystery. Mind cannot grasp him, only spirit can know him.
Satyam nasti paro dharma, satyam lokasya dibaha, shruyatam drishatam kriyatam uchatam parapara sharanam agachati bhagavan sharanam agachati dharmam sharanam agachati sangham sharanam agachati satyayugam sharanam agachati. Om soham tattvamasi. Om parapara ki jai. Om jai Bhagavan ji.
Truth is the highest religion. Truth is the light of the world. Let it be heard. Let it be seen. Let it be done. Let it be told. Come take refuge in Parapara. Come take refuge in Bhagavan. Come take refuge in Dharma. Come take refuge in Sangha. Come take refuge in Satyayuga. Om Jai Bhagavanji. Victory to God the Beloved. Victory to the friend. Jai Bhagavanji.
Jai Bhagavanji.
Jai Bhagavanji.
Jai Bhagavanji. India, rise and rise again. O Maitreya, go out into this world bold and unafraid. Initiate all willing souls in my name and in the name of the one universal God who has sent me unto you. And bring forth the age of universal God's pure divine truth for the salvation and liberation of all suffering souls. And when the bigots cast stones against you, take every stone they cast and use them to build my church in this world. And when they seek to oppress you and destroy you, rise and rise again and again like the phoenix from the ashes, until the lambs have become lions and the rule of darkness is no more.
Beloved universal God, all radiant universal light, as we turn our minds to you, fill our hearts and minds and lives with your clear light. From the unreal, lead us to the real. From darkness, lead us to the light. From death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Victory to that beloved universal I am that I am, which you are.
Jai Bhagavan.
Jai Bhagavan Ji.
Oh. victory and glory to God the Beloved.
All victory and glory to God the Beloved.
Jai Bhagavan.
Jai Bhagavan.
Om, you and I are one with the one universal God of all creation and no other. Jai Bhagavanji, victory to God the Beloved, that beloved universal I am that I am, which you are.
Jai Bhagavan. Jai Bhagavan.
Well, today I think I'm going to shake you up a little bit. Because we have certain mindsets in our culture. Now, I started using that word probably 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Now you hear it all over the news, and even political people are saying mindsets. But what's a mindset? A mindset is a frame of reference, a pair of colored glasses, so to speak, through which we see the world. You can't get away from it. Your maybe the first minute that you're born, you don't have one. Maybe the first couple of hours after you're born, you don't really have one. But it's the way we frame up the world. It's what we see the world in. Now, over here we have, on the left, we have the communist. And he or she sees the world through one pair of glasses. Over here we have the fascists, I guess they call them, I don't know. And they see the world through a different pair of glasses. And each one wants to kill the other so that that other pair of glasses will go away. That's a mindset. A mindset is, well, I'm going out today and I'm going to have a good time. That's a mindset.
Wow.
It is, by the way, a mindset that's guaranteed to give you a very bad day. If you want to have a really bad day, just make up your mind when you wake up in the morning you're going to have a wonderful day and nothing's going to go wrong and nothing's going to bug you. Then you have the worst day of your life. Because things always go wrong. Things always happen. So if you make up your mind that it doesn't matter whether things go wrong or not, it doesn't matter whether the car breaks down. If the car breaks down, I'll walk. You know, if I can't walk, I'll call a taxi. If I can't call a taxi, I'll hop a bus. If I can't do any of those things, I'll go back inside and go to bed and enjoy sleeping all day. If you're not, you see, your mindset determines how you, not only how you see the world, but how you react to it. And so this is not a matter of positive thinking, it's a matter of taking control of your mind and your life. We are really, you could call it 3 parts, you could call it 4 parts. We're really, if you break it down, we're really 4 parts. 1, we'll start from the most obvious, we're a body. Anybody deny that? Anybody come in here with that one? Of course not. So we're a body. Now inside of this body, between these ears, there's a thing called a brain. Materialists, the guys over here on the left, they believe that we are nothing but a body and a brain. And that this whole thing is simply an accident where all kinds of things came together accidentally. So you're an accident. Have you ever looked at the human body? Have you ever looked at the anatomy of the human body? Have you ever... Now, how by accident did this hip bone and this socket develop together? And people will say, well, evolution. Evolution. And they'll say survival of the fittest. Well, if that's the case, then one animal runs off a cliff and dies, then how are all these other animals supposed to learn not to run off the cliff? He's dead. He can't procreate and have children that know not to run off of cliffs because he's dead. So, you see, we have this idiot notion that we are a material creature alone. We are a material creature. Brain is very material. When something goes bad in it, sometimes everything else stops. It's like the brain in your car, you know, the computer in your car. It goes bad, the car doesn't run. But that's not what we are. So we have a body, we have a brain, and the brain is very much like a mega, massive, super mega computer. We will never build a computer to match the brain.
Yeah.
It is said that there are so many neural connections in the brain that there are more neural connections in the brain than there are stars in the universe. That's a lot. We can hook up a lot of different ways, can't we? So isn't it silly we hook up the same way every day?
Yes.
Yeah.
We hook up the same way every day. It's called a mindset. So what is the mind then? Well, let me put it this way. If your computer were your body, and the screen of your computer were your mind, then the mind is what takes all of these little impulses, all of these little sensations and perceptions and things of that sort, puts them all together and makes a picture out of them. And makes a picture out of them. I have a little kitty that I took to a vet to get her teeth cleaned, and they gave her too much anesthesia. And when I came back, she was curled up in a little ball, and they wanted me to euthanize her. And I said, no, I will not. So we took her home, we fed her through an eyedropper, we put diapers on her. I don't know if you know about the Sister Kenny method of polio rehabilitation, because polio is almost non-existent now. But they used to take and they'd move the limb, and they'd move every limb. And this is what we did with this little kitty. And finally, and today she's up, she runs up and down the stairs. She can do everything but see. But you know she can see. Her eyes are perfect. And this morning I held up a brass shoehorn in front of her, and she went and grabbed for it. See, she can see, but her mind no longer puts things together in a recognizable form. Her eyes are working, her brain is working, but her mind no longer recognizes what it recognized before. So this is kind of like, you know, if you've ever had a blowout on your video screen on your computer. You know, you're watching, your computer's working fine, the brain's working fine, the chassis is there, everything's hooked up, but all of a sudden your video goes out. You know what that'll do to your day. Make you real unhappy. So your mind is like that video. So here you have the body, and it's perceiving things all the time. Right now I'm perceiving. I hear, I see, I feel, sensations, all these things are going on. You can just check it out for a minute, see what your body's doing right now, what it's feeding you. It's a lot of stuff. You hear that plane going on in the distance. You feel the pressure of the chair. If you're remembering this, you feel your hand on your hand. See, your body's just feeding you this flood of information, and it's flooding through your brain like this massive mega computer. Your brain's going click, 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 click. Store that here, store that, do this. It's doing all this stuff. Your mind looks at all that stuff just like your computer, you know, your video card. Makes a picture on your screen. If you could look at what your computer's doing, you know the computer is just, everything that goes on in a computer is just zeros and ones. Actually, it's even worse than that. It's called a piece of silicon. And silicon has holes in it. And certain holes are either filled with an electron or they're not. If it's filled, it's a 1. If it's not, it's a 0. Everything in your computer is 1s and 0s. My mentor, Henry D. Fraser, worked for a place called Pacific Semiconductors. He was the head of research and development there. He was an engineer. And he had, I think, 8 or 9 patents in semiconductor class before they knew what to do with this stuff. And he taught me a lot of this stuff. So, you know, here we have a computer is nothing but the electron fills the hole in the little chip, or it doesn't fill the hole. If it's filled, it's a 1. If it's not filled, it's a 0. And everything works that way in the computer. What could we do with that? What would you do with all these 1s and 0s? Even if you put it on your screen, all you can see is 1s and 0s.
Somebody figured it out.
So somebody figured out how to take a card and run it through this card and make a picture out of it. Somebody figured out how to put a card in us and run it through the card and make a picture out of it. That's God. Figured that out. Figured all of that out. And so when you look up here, you're seeing me. When I look out there, I'm seeing you. Really, all we're seeing is activity of the brain. But the mind puts it together in different ways. Now, in the 1960s, there was a thing called hallucinogenics, you know, LSD and magic mushrooms and all that stuff. People loved it because what it did is it fiddled with the way your brain put the picture together. And you see all these great hallucinations, all these beautiful colors, and feel all these wonderful sensations, and some people felt awful ones. And all it really did was play games with the way your mind put the picture together.
Wow.
The one, maybe the one good thing that it ever did was it let people know that what you're seeing on an everyday basis isn't what's there. You can see it a different way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now this sounds very scientific, but I really want you to understand this. There's a thing called the electromagnetic spectrum. It runs from ultraviolet to infrared. Or from infrared to ultraviolet, I don't know. And if you were to say, okay, one whole block is the length of the electromagnetic spectrum, right? We see about that much. That's what we see. Out of the whole thing, that's what we see. If you could look at me and see infrared right now, you've heard of infrared cameras, you know, they see it at night. If you could look at me and see infrared, what you'd see is a big ball fuzz. And I'd see the same thing sitting there, big balls of fuzz. There's a hot spot, there's a hot spot, there's a hot spot. But we can't see that. So what we see out of this entire universe is this tiny little eighth of an inch. Eighth of an inch. And it's good enough for us. We build cities, we build cars, we do all kinds of things with it, and it's okay. But you have to understand that it's your mind that puts these things together. Now there's a lower mind, there's a higher mind. The lower mind is the one that sort of infuses your brain and your body and picks up things and puts them together. But wait a minute, if it's putting things together, your computer's sitting there, the CPU is working, the keyboard's working, the mouse is working, and the picture's on the screen, what's missing? The person who's looking at it, right? The person who's looking at it. And that's you. You're the person who's looking at your mind. And you're not the body. You're in it, but you're not it. You're not the brain. You're in it, but you're not it. You're not even the mind. What you are is pure, divine, universal spirit that's watching this movie. That's watching this picture. And that's you. Now, your body can be hurt. Your brain can go bad. Your mind can even get messed up. I have 2 degrees in psychology and behavioral sciences, and I was a counselor and all that. And, you know, I worked in mental hospitals for my internship and so forth. Your mind can really get messed up. But you can't be touched. Because you're beyond all those. You're the person, I mean, if your CRT blows out, if your screen blows out, and you're sitting there in the chair, you may get upset, but it's not going to hurt you, is it? It just goes dark, you go, I've got to go buy another one. Yeah. Well, that's the way it is with life. You are this spirit that's beyond the body, the brain, and the mind. And so what do? Well, you sit there and you decide things are going to happen. Now your body can decide things are going to happen too. If you touch a hot stove, you know, the signal that comes from your fingers doesn't even go through your brain, it goes straight to your spinal column, so you pull your hand off that fast. If it went through your brain, you'd have 3rd-degree burns before you could pull your hand off. So this machine, this organic thing that we live in, anybody who says it's accidental, it's kind of like somebody that puts a black bag over their head, walks outside in the noonday sun, and then says there's no sun. Wait a minute. This is no accident. This is an intentional thing that we have here. Now, I don't have any argument with evolution, because God created evolution. He set this universe up and said, evolve, and gave us total freedom. And gave the universe total freedom. Now, he probably knows what's going to happen next, but nobody else does. And he's not going to interfere with it because he gave it total freedom. Oh, he will intervene in certain cases, in certain ways. But mostly, it's up to us. We can make a paradise or we can make a hell out of this world. So far, we've been really good at making a hell out of it, you know that? We do a lot better at making a hell out of it than we do making a paradise out of it, which is really stupid, because we have to live in it. But I want you to understand, body, brain, lower mind, then the upper mind is what is kind of intertwined with you as a spirit. So if you want to do something, you go, all you do is intend it. You don't figure it out. You just go, drink of water. Your hand reach out, gets a glass, turns on the tap, drinks the water. You don't go, reach out 2.5 feet, grab the glass with X amount of pressure, pick it up, come up to your... You don't do all that. See, all that's pre-programmed in here. All you do is intend. Or something else. And this, I said I was going to shake things up a little bit today. Sakyamuni Buddha said, desire is the source of all suffering. And you know what? He's right. Even the desire not to have desire is a source of suffering, isn't it? I've seen more people suffer by trying to not have desire that I've seen suffer by having desires. So, now Buddha's probably laughing up his sleeve about that one, because here's all these people that go, I don't want to have any desires. I'm going to really struggle with myself. I'm going to fight with myself. I'm not having any desires. And boom, that's why I said in the beginning, if you want to have a really bad day, just go out desiring to have a perfect day. There's no such thing as a perfect day. The perfect day is when you're ready to accept whatever comes along. Within reason. Yeah, if somebody says, come with me and rob a bank, you don't want to do that. But within reason, if you're willing to accept whatever comes along, you're going to have a good day no matter what happens. The car breaks down, who cares? You're supposed to have lunch with somebody they can't make, who cares? I'll have a good lunch anyway. You know, they don't eat for me, I don't eat for them, you know, that kind of thing. So, we're left with this business of desire. Now, desire has been very maligned in our culture. You know, people put it down. We've just been watching these debates on TV between, what's his name, Romney and Gingrich and some other, couple other guys. And people criticize rich people because, oh, they're terrible people. They have all these desires. Poor people have just as many desires as rich people. The only difference is that the poor people can't fulfill them. And so they get really upset at the rich people because the rich people can. Do you know what it takes to be rich? You can be rich. Any one of you can be rich. I know some very rich people. They don't give me any of their money, by the way. That's because they're rich. They're not stupid. The difference between a rich person and a poor person, I'm not talking about inherited money now, I'm talking about earned money, is that the poor person is out drinking beer, shooting pool, going to the beach, rocking and rolling, while the rich person is up in some funky little office in Century City until 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, pounding his brains out or her brains out, making money. Money's not that important to me. Never was. Anybody can be rich if you'll do that. And if you're smart, and if you find the very simple thing is find a need and fill it, buy low, sell high. You're rich. So those who go out in the street and protest, I had a very interesting realization about this Occupy, what was it, Occupy Wall Street? They're occupying everything now.
Yeah.
Occupy, I don't know. Some minister just threw a whole bunch of them out of his church because he let them into his church, and they stole his brass baptismal thing. So he tossed them all out.
Yeah.
I hope you learned a lesson. Hope you learned a lesson. What do you think, what kind of person do you think can spend a month and a half sitting in a tent in Washington? I couldn't. My cats would starve. They'd confiscate where I live. Could you? No, of course not. The only people who can occupy anything are people who aren't doing anything. If they were doing something, they'd be too busy to occupy it. I grew up really poor. Really poor. And then I got married very young. And I was even poorer. And I thought I would never get out of that. Well, I never did. But I realized along the way that we have to... See, desire is not the problem. It's what you desire that's the problem. If you desire playing pool and drinking beer with your buds after work and going to the beach and pursuing sexual activities at the local meat market and all of that kind of stuff, and that's what's important to you, that's what you're going to have. I feel kind of sorry for the folks that spend till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning at the office every night trying to figure out how to get another $100,000 or $1 million in their bank account. See, to me, that life is too short for that. But I don't begrudge them that, because that's their desire. What is the difference between courage and cowardice? It's very simple. The courageous person has a greater desire to win the battle, or perhaps to preserve the lives of his buddies in a war, than he has to preserve his own life. The coward has a greater desire to preserve his own life than he does to win the battle or preserve his buddies' lives. That's the only difference. Both of them are operating on desire. And this is the way spirit operates. In the ancient Upanishads, which are writings from India, I don't know which one it is because I don't memorize these things. They just clutter up my puny little brain. But you can look it up. There's I think it's the Isha Upanishad or some other Upanishad. Anyway, it says, in the beginning of creation, spirit wanted to see, and so the eye was born. Spirit wanted to move, and so the legs were born. Now, I don't know if this is literally true, but it's pretty doggone interesting. In our time, we can say, spirit wanted these things, electric lights. And so Thomas Edison, after doing something like 1,700 failed experiments, desired to come up with an electric light enough that he did the 1,701 experiment, don't hold me to the number, but some huge number of experiments, and he came up with the electric light. Spirit wanted to fly through the air like the birds. We do, don't we? They're called airplanes. Right? What we want as spirit, what we desire, we will create. We will create. Now, why we create war and stupid things like that is a whole other subject that I don't want to get into because I hate to have you see a grown man cry. But eventually, spirit will create a cure for cancer. You notice it's a relentless pursuit. It never stops. Eventually, we will find a way, because it's our desire, we'll find a way that people don't have to starve to death in the world. Now, cuss me and curse me if you want to, but it's not by feeding everybody. Because we have this tendency to procreate. And the more people who eat, the more we procreate. And we will outstrip our food supply, no matter how much. If everybody's fed every day of every week, we'll outstrip our food supply because we'll just procreate more. Unless we get that side under control, we're never going to get this side under control. And I'm not talking about abortion or anything like that. That's another subject. I believe that the very instant that there is a conception, there is spirit. And so you have to work that one out on your own. I'm not going to get into that. We'll let the politicians work on that. They never figure it out. But this is the whole thing is trying to kill desire. Is the desire to kill desire? We have to learn to master desire. It's not that you desire something, it's what you desire that's going to, like the Upanishad says, spirit desired to see, so the eye was born. Think of that. Somewhere along in this evolution that God created, the spirit that was in this creature said, I want to see. And somehow, the eye was born. Does that sound like an accident? No. See, this is where the communist, the socialist, the materialist goes way wrong. That's no accident. That's intentional. Spirit wanted to move about on the land. So somehow, this thing that swam around in the ocean figured out how to get up and walk. Is that an accident? This fish accidentally got out of the water and started walking around. Whoops, what am I doing? How to get up here? Right? That's no accident. That's intentional. We are intentional beings. So what you are today is a tough pill to swallow.
Yes.
So get a big glass of water. What you are today is what you once wanted to be. But you didn't know all the ramifications, so you didn't know all the things. You know, like I wanted to be a counselor and a therapist. So I went to school and I got a bachelor's degree in psychology. I got a master's degree in behavioral science. I went ahead and got my marriage family therapy license, which I still hang on to and pay my fees every year just to bug them. I went all that. I worked in insane asylums where people were so crazy they had to hose them down and they couldn't even get near them until they tranquilized them. I did all this stuff because I wanted to be a counselor. And then I found myself sitting in a little room about like this with a couple of chairs, a little couch. You know, I didn't do Freudian stuff, but there was a little couch there anyway. And talking to people about how they were traumatized because the drapes that they got didn't match the floor that they had. It wasn't what I had in mind. See? So I started working with computers instead because they didn't talk back. And that's how I made my living for quite a while. I was working with computers because they didn't talk back. I didn't want to hear that stuff anymore. Now, there are good things to be done with counseling, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't what I had in mind. But when I was going for it, I thought I had a mindset, I had a picture of it. So what you are today is what you once wanted to be. Now, I don't know how far back you need to go. Probably need to go all the way back to about, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. You know, I want to be a fireman. Wait a minute, firemen run into buildings that are burning. I want to run out. But some people do want to run in. See? But you don't realize that until you get to the point where you've got to go through basic training to be a fireman and it almost kills you. It's one of the most rigorous trainings there is. Or are. So we made ourselves a long time ago and now we don't like it. Well, we were ignorant. Like at 7 years old, what do you know about being a fireman? Oh, they get to ride on big trucks and they have white dogs with spots on them on the back of the truck and they wear funny hats and that's really cool. And they squirt hoses, that's really neat. That's what you know about being a fireman. That's what you knew at that time about being you. So you created yourself at that time. And now you're stuck with it, unless you do something about it. What do you do about it? I remember Bill Cosby had this monologue he did at one time. And all these horses or cows are running along the road. And one cow looks at the other and says, "Where are we going?" He said, "We're going to get shot." "Going to get shot? Why are they going to shoot us?" He said, "Because we got hoof in the mouth." "Hoof in the mouth? What's hoof in the mouth?" He said, "See that foam around your mouth?" He said, "Yeah." So that's hoof in the mouth. "Anything we can do about it?" "Yeah, wipe that foam out from around your mouth." That was Cosby's monologue. So, yeah, you can do something about it. But it takes a desire to do something about it. If you're poor and you want to be rich, you can be rich. You don't have to steal. When I first started working with computers, I felt like a crook because nobody knew how to put them together. And I would set up a system for an attorney that would take me like 4 hours to set up, and I'd get like $13,000 for setting up this system. Wow. That's like stealing from attorneys. Well, we won't go into that. No, attorneys are good people for the most part. But I mean, it was so lucrative that it felt like stealing to me because I'd always been poor. My folks were poor. They were good people, but they were poor. I had a brother and a sister, and the three of us all lived in one room because we only had a 2-room house in Westchester. I think the house cost like $18,000 when we bought it. I had to scrounge around and find old cars and fix them up to drive because they didn't have any money to buy me a car. But it didn't bother me because I never expected anything. You know, I didn't come into this world expecting that anybody was going to do anything for me. I just figured we had to hack it out ourselves. So you got to get over this idea that there's something wrong with desire. If there's anything at all wrong with desire, it's only wrong with what you desire. And the art of wisdom is being able to look at a desire that you have, kind of project it into the future and say, what's that going to result in? What is the, as they say in the military, collateral damage that this desire is going to cause? I know a lot of people who's, well, I grew up here in Westchester, and I grew up in the 50s and the 60s. The only thing anybody wanted to do then, including me, was to get married and have kids, have a little house, work 8 hours a day, and have grandchildren, get old and die. That's what we wanted to do. But we'll listen to the songs from the 50s and the 60s. Did you hear anything else? No. That's it. That's it. And it sounds so beautiful until you do it. And it was beautiful. I got married when I was 17. And it was beautiful. But it also had a downside. So wisdom is being able to look at the desire that you have and say, what's the collateral damage? What's likely to happen if I go this way? And what's likely to happen if I go this way? Now, I mentioned communism, socialism, and that kind of stuff. It's very popular down in Venice, down here now. It is every 10 or 15, 20 years. People take the time to forget what it's all about. Communists have killed over 150 million people in the world in the last 100 years. 150 million. Stalin starved 20 million Ukrainians to death to drive them off of their family farms and into communist collectives. These weren't people that were fighting a war. These were people that just wanted to hang on to their family farms. Mao murdered 80 million people for the communist cause. And on and on and on. And yet, it's failed everywhere where it's reared its ugly head. Someday, somebody's going to look at it and they're going to go, wait a minute, the collateral damage from this thing is just too much. I don't particularly like capitalism, they might say, but I'm sure not going to go that way. We've got a 100-year history of doing that, and it's not good. So we have to learn to desire intelligently. We have to learn to desire wisely. And that means somehow projecting it down the road and saying, where's this going to end up? Well, we know where the communist society is going to end up. It's going to end up in the trash heap of history, where it belongs because it infringes upon individual freedom. I don't go by Republican or Democrat or communist or fascist or anything like that. I only have one criteria for judging politics. How much individual freedom does it accord to the individual, and how much does it take away? If it takes away more than the minimum amount, I don't want it. Because everything that's come about that's been good, Thomas Edison, the Wright brothers, penicillin, Madame Curie with radiation technology, which we call X-rays today. All of these things were done by individuals who are unhampered by governments and master plans and things of that sort. So I don't want, thank you, you know, take your government, take your master plan and take it with you somewhere. I don't want that. I don't want some government bureaucrat who can barely, how can I say this, find his behind with both hands of a compass of bloodhound and a Boy Scout telling me how to live. Because he doesn't know how to live. All he knows is how to be a bureaucrat.
Yeah.
So I don't like those guys, see? I don't like that way of life. We want freedom. And as you look at what your desire is going to produce, weigh it against freedom. My heart goes out to my rich brothers and sisters. I went to my 30th high school reunion. Don't go to your 30th high school reunion if you want to keep your sanity. For one thing, you look at everybody and go, you guys got really old. And then you look in the mirror and go, uh-oh. But the thing that piqued my heart the most at this reunion was people would get up and they would talk. And 4 or 5 people from my class that I knew well had become multi-millionaires. They were wrecked.
Oh.
They were wrecked. Now, you don't have to be wrecked to be a multi-millionaire, but these guys were wrecked. They were fat. They were bald. And they were kind of ugly. Because they'd have to scratch and claw their way up this mountain of money. One guy said, I've lost $3 million in my life. I'm working on the 4th million now. I said, I couldn't help it. I said, don't you ever learn? Now, if it comes easy for you, that's great. But if you have to scratch and claw like that, and what my heart went out to them was because when I talked to them, I said, what do you do? Well, you know, I work like an 80-hour week, and then I go out on my boat when I have time, and, you know, I'll play a little golf or something. 80-hour week. My grandpa was from Italy. His name was Perigo. I'm not sure he was from Italy, but his family was. And he used to tell me, son, don't spend so much time making a living that you forget to do the living that you're making. He had to drop out of school when he was 3 years old to help on the family farm. Not 3 years old, 3rd grade, I'm sorry. Might have been 3 years old. But it was 3rd grade. He never got past the 3rd grade, but he was very wise. He was a very wise man. And I paid attention to him. So, I'm not saying be poor. And I'm not saying don't be rich. Just understand what your desire is going to produce. I mean, if the desire of the Spirit produced the eyes that we see through, and the desire for this animal that floated in the ocean produced the legs that we walk on. Now, I know a lot of Christians will freak out about that because they think we came all prepackaged. Maybe we did. I don't know. You want to argue with me, argue with me. But I believe God created evolution so that we would have the maximum freedom to evolve into as many species as possible for this great experiment of His. Like, what's going to happen? Let's put it out there, give it a spin, and see what happens. See what evolves. That's my experience. If you don't like it, don't like it. So, the coward and the courageous person are both operating on desire. They just desire something different. The courageous person desires to win the battle for the homeland, the motherland, the fatherland, whatever it is. And may desire the lives of his buddies, or her buddies, more than their own. Like the guy that jumps on the hand grenade, knowing full well that when that thing goes off, he's going to be blown all over the room. But his desire is to save his buddies. The coward, on the other hand, is the guy who ran out the door when he saw the hand grenade because his desire is to stay alive more than to protect his buddies or to win the war. It's all desire. The poor person is poor because of their desires. It's not circumstances. It's not because of oppression. There's no oppression in the United States. There's no oppression. I mean, I remember when I had to eat one meal a day. I used to go out and beg from the back of grocery stores when I was out of work so that I could go home and feed my wife and my baby. They'd throw food away. And I'd go around, and I had my little route for a while until I could get another job where I would go around and get vegetables and milk and things like that had gone a day over, and they were going to throw it away, and they would give it to me. I was a beggar for about 2 months. I did go down and get a welfare check once. Down to Lenox, California. Went down to the welfare office, sat there, went through this awful proceeding. Now, mind you, I come from a long line of farming people and people who, don't like that kind of thing. And I got this check, and I remember it was a little cardboard check, had little holes in it at the time. And I took it home, and I meditated on it, and I prayed on it, and I meditated on it, I prayed on it. Monday morning, I was back down at the welfare office. I tore that thing in little pieces, I threw it across the counter, and I said, I'd rather beg for a living than take your money. And so I went out, and on the way home, God showed me the back of this grocery store. I was driving down this alley, and I went, they're throwing food away. Now they have to lock the bins, because there's government regulations saying they can't give it to anybody. But then, they just threw in the bins. So I went up and I said, look, this is my situation. I'm out of work. I've got a wife and a baby at home. I need food. If you have anything that's good and isn't going to make us sick, would you mind if I come by and get a little bit of it every day? So every day I'd go by. I had my little route. And I'd beg I was a beggar. That's how poor I was. But I didn't stay that way. I never got rich because I don't want to be rich. I never got rich because my work is my religious work. See, that's my desire. I have the capacity to be rich. Quite. I've invented things in my life and given them away. You know what happened to the people who took them? They got rich. And don't you know they came back and gave me a whole bunch of money for the idea? No, they didn't. Because that's the way it is. But I made my choice. I'm standing here in this hall instead of being out on my yacht. Because I don't have a yacht. And the reason I don't have a yacht is because I want to stand in this hall. I want to do this. This is my desire. So look at yourself. Look at what you're desiring. What you desire creates this mindset for you. It depends on what colored glasses you have on. Now, there's an old thing, there's an old gimmick, really. And people say, well, you know, is the glass half full or half empty? Have you ever had anybody say that to you? Don't you just hate them when they say that? They just want to dump a glass of water on them. Well, is the glass half full or half empty? I figured it out. I finally figured it out. God gave me an inspiration. Whether the glass is half full or half empty depends on how thirsty you are. If you're not thirsty, the glass is half full. If you're really thirsty, it's half empty.
Wow.
If you really like money and you want to spend a lot of it, $100,000 isn't enough.
There is one universal God, there is one universal Spirit, one known and indivisible, there is no
You're just
other.
ecstatic, aren't you?
Due to spiritual
So you see,
ignorance,
if you're
that
hungry,
people see
you're thirsty,
universal
the glass is half
God
full,
differently
half
because of
empty.
this they call
If you're
him
not
by
thirsty, the
different
glass is
names. In truth, universal God is universal Spirit, which is both manifest and unmanifest, both personal and impersonal, both immanent and transcendent,
So what I want
yet
you to leave
neither.
you with today is this.
Universal God is the one greatest mystery. Mind cannot grasp him, only spirit can know him.
I don't know if
Universal God alone is real, there is nothing but universal God everywhere. Universal God is the one source, cause, substance, and self of all creation, all existence, and all being. Creation, existence,
puts
and
their
being
hands
have
on
no
my
reality
is not my
or
friend.
existence
Or the
apart
friend of
from
progress. Or the friend
universal
of society.
Spirit. Soul is pure divine universal Spirit, which is ignorant of its true nature. In truth, all soul is pure divine universal Spirit, which is one and identical with universal God and no other. Spiritual ignorance and wrong believing hide the truth from people's hearts and minds. The result is birth, division, conflict, pain, fear, suffering, sorrow, and death. Their fruit is endless rounds of births and deaths. Enlightenment and self-realization are the cures of friendly initiation is true enlightenment. Self-realization is full and absolute knowledge of the truth born of direct spiritual experience. There is no self-realization without true enlightenment. There is no other salvation or liberation. The truth alone sets all people free. Self-realization is the one universal purpose and goal of all life, all creation, all existence, and all being are for self-realization alone. The purpose and goal of the wave is to return to the sea from which it has come and of which it is a part. The purpose and goal of each soul is to retain self-realization.
Munich, Germany, or some other place, deciding how we shall live. See, that's why I'm against this universal health care. Oh, you don't want people to have health care. Yes, I do. I don't want people to be under the thumb of tyranny. I don't want somebody telling me that my doctor can't give me the medicine that I need because some bureaucrat in Washington says that I don't need. I want freedom. I'll still go out and beg from the back of the grocery store before I'll take a welfare check. Why? Because begging keeps me free. Taking welfare makes me a slave to the state. And I don't want to be a slave to the state. The state hasn't got a real good record after they haven't done well. All the way back to Rome, they didn't do well. So, free will, free choice, self-determinism, individual freedom, and absolute, inescapable personal responsibility. These 5. So every time you put your hand up like this, think about it. Freedom. As long as you've got this hand, you can grab anything that you need. You can turn it to anything. You can craft it into anything you need. But every time you take away one of these fingers, what are you going to do with these? You take away free will, free choice, self-determinism. What are you going to make with these? Can you play tennis with these? No. You got to have this, don't you?
Yeah.
Got to have this whole hand. Don't let anybody take any of your freedom away from you. Those who keep their hands off of your freedom are your friends. Those who put their hands on your freedom. Believe me, I don't care what song they're singing. I don't care what political party they are. I don't care what ideology they're from. They're not your friends. They're your keepers. Om Soham Tatvamasi. Om. You and I are one with the one universal God of all creation and no other. Jai Bhagwanji. Victory to God the beloved, that beloved universal I am that I am, which you are. All victory and glory to God the beloved.
All victory and glory to God the beloved.
Jai Bhagwanji.
Jai Bhagwan.
Jai Bhagwan.